Hey, welcome back everyone. We're going to do another painting in the Fundamentals of Artrage series, but this is going to be quite a bit different than before. Never have I done this with you guys before. So basically what I wanted to do is show you how dramatically you can use the canvas settings to change the entire style of your artwork. You guys know that we all come to this painting thing with very different visions of what is a good painting, what style we love, etc., right? So we're going to talk about that today, and I'm going to show you two very distinct styles and how to make them happen in Artrage. Let's get right to it. So first thing, you guys know, if you're familiar with my channel, that I am someone that loves that kind of chunky, rough, messy style. So here I'm just going to literally just lean into that and make a big old mess. And this is my favorite way of working. This is what I'm interested in. The beautiful mess, the just kind of it looks a lot like a plein air painting or like an alla prima painting where you're trying to go as fast as you can. And so it's kind of a funny thing because it's like a studio painting done in your studio, right? But it looks like it's done out in nature because of the approach. And that works for me. I mean, that's kind of like my personality. I'm not interested in a lot of detail. I'm not interested in having things tidy. I want things to be ambiguous. I want things to be messy, and I want things to be really kind of like expressive and open. So with that said, here is kind of a way of doing that, thinking about all this stuff like as just shapes of light and dark, just kind of blocking everything in, keeping it all really simple. That's the way to get there, and you know, you can get a nice result that way, and it can be pretty effective and pretty powerful. I'm using the oil brush exclusively here, and you can see my settings. I have them right there, so you can kind of copy those, and maybe that'll kind of help you get the look you want if you kind of like this style. Then I'll get my palette knife, and I can kind of just go in and knock down certain areas or smudge around my values so that if I have an area that doesn't have exactly the right color, a lot of times I can use the palette knife to kind of mush it together and make the shape that I need. Then if it doesn't quite work, I go back with the oil brush, and you're in business. So there is a sort of finished version of this style, right? And for any of you guys that have been to my channel, you guys have seen this 1,000 times. So you're like, yeah, so what else is new? Well, here's what I wanted to show you, is that not everybody paints like this, obviously, or is interested in painting like this. I have a number of students that are, you know, always very interested in a very different look, and they can find home in Artrage as well. And so we have to realize that, you know, there's no right or wrong with style. It's just whatever works for you and whatever your interest is. And I think this kind of style is kind of a funny thing, because there's a real difference sometimes between what comes out of us naturally and what we wish would come out of us naturally. And so sometimes we admire artists that are like the opposite of us, and sometimes we admire artists that are, you know, just like maybe do what we do, but they're a little bit further down the path. So they're kind of like calling us forward or whatever. But I think wherever you land in this, I think it's good to be able to know what you can do with the software that you have in front of you. And so I just wanted to show you that. So even if you're comfortable with this and you know how to set it all up, well, let's just check out something else entirely. So if we go over to this other side, this canvas is the same canvas. It's 2000 by 2000 pixels. It's 300 pixels per inch. And what I'm going to do is we can start with the oil brush, but look how different it looks. Now the one difference is this stiffness setting, but the other difference is this. I have canvas lighting turned off, and I have the roughness of the canvas. See, if you see that roughness there? It's a different texture too, but that roughness, it has a huge part to play in the manifestation of the mark. So if you set the roughness to 0, and you can be extra careful to not make any problems, you can set your grain size to the smallest possible, but it's the roughness set to 0 and canvas lighting turned off. And you can find all this stuff under View Canvas Settings. That will give you an entirely unique surface. So let's check this out. I can still color sample and do everything, you know, the way I typically do, and And I'm going to just turn my stiffness of the brush way down. And then I'm going to go in here and look for my dark shapes. And what's crazy is by doing these very simple things with Artrage, you kind of turn it into like every other art program, in the sense that most art programs work in this way, where there's like really smooth mark making, and you have to work your butt off to get it to kind of look kind of chunky and textury and naturalistic. Well, Artrage does that, super well. And so that's never really a challenge. What is a challenge sometimes, kind of, it's not really a challenge, you just need to know where to kind of how to set it up, is how to make Artrage look like every other software. So here we go. Using the oil brush, you can see that I get these still angular kind of planar marks because of the way that I have my brush set up. It's like, that's just what it's gonna do. But look at this. I can get my wax or chalk tool, and what I did is I went into stylus properties and I add size. So typically size isn't there, but you can click add a setting, size, and then your chalk pastel will have pressure sensitivity just like your oil brush. Now watch what happens. You can go in here and you can start drawing with this tool, and it is so crazy with the canvas set up like this, using a tool like this, you get the smoothest, most un-Artrage looking artwork, right? But that's cool. I think it's actually really, really useful, because sometimes you're going to do something that's more illustrative or something that's maybe for a client with a different aesthetic, and you don't want to have to, I mean, if you can use one tool for all, why not just do it, right? Like if you like using Artrage, well, use Artrage. But Artrage is versatile, and I think that's all I'm trying to say here, is that in this kind of late stage of my Fundamentals of Artrage series videos, I wanted to show stuff that's more about personal voice, stuff that's more about personal style, stuff that's more about like making the tool and its versatility fit your specific need. And so with this, I'm just trying to show how adaptable Artrage can be. And I think I mean, it's so stark. If you see these two canvases side by side, it's pretty astonishing, right? And again, like I said, like Artrage is so fun because it's so easy for Artrage to be that chunky, messy, naturalistic painting. Like it can do that style so easily, but it's surprising how well it can do this style too, this really blended, kind of smooth. And you have to sort of think about like the traditional tools, like the chalk pastel or the oil brush or whatever, is they're not really, I mean, they're good approximations of oil brushes and stuff like that, like really good, but they aren't oil brushes, right? They're a digital thing. And so the digital thing has its own vibe, it's its own energy. And so what you want to do is play to the strengths of the tool, see what it can do. Don't be afraid to explore. Using the palette knife is always a cool twist, in Artrage, because you just have this naturally awesome built-in blending tool. And so you can get in here and you can start noodling around and make it like perfectly blended. Now, if you want it really perfectly blended, you wouldn't use the oil brush at all. You would just do this. Watch this. So you can just take this palette knife, and you got to work it a little bit, but when you do, you see that the blending is like literally as good as you could ever want, right? And so just to sort of prove that point, I'm showing you like this is a mix here. This is the oil brush because I wanted to show the comparison. But if you want to get that super smooth look, what I would do is the chalk pastel and the palette knife. And then you can just smudge the business out of that and make it totally, totally perfect, right? So yeah, so that's that. I didn't even finish this one because it's like so much not my interest to go in there and noodle around and make it all smooth. But if I was gonna do it, I would use the chalk pastel tool and the palette knife, and I would get busy making the most perfectly blended lips of all time. And you could have a blast with that, you know, if that's your thing. But for me, this is way more my interest. I just think it looks way cooler and it's way more my vibe. But 2 paintings, 2 styles, same reference, same canvas size. All we're doing is playing with canvas lighting and some tool settings. And remember, you can go in here to set stylish properties and you can add size. So again, you just go to add setting, size, okay, and that gives your chalk pastel pressure sensitivity. And I'll just show you that one more time. What that looks like when it's turned off is you cut that out, and then the tool is always just kind of that like block. And the reason they do that is like chalk pastel, if you ever are a pastel artist, you know, they just come in like little shanks, you know, like little tubes, and you just have to like, you kind of you can use the edge, you know, but it doesn't have the same range of diameter as like an oil brush that has a taper to it or whatever. But I still think, even though it's not maybe as realistic, I think it's way more fun to use this tool with pressure sensitivity turned on. So, and just one last thing I want to show you, like here's a pencil mark on this smooth canvas, and then here's a pencil mark on this chunky canvas. And you can see they just look so different. And I think it's just really a useful thing to be able to have a tool like this in at your disposal. Like you have a tool that is so versatile, and it lets you choose what you want, right? And maybe some days you want this, and other days you want something else. So hopefully this is helpful to you guys. Thank you for checking out the video. I'm gonna keep making more and more content. Please in the comments let me know what works for you, what you're interested in, and what you're excited about. I've had a lot of questions about different pieces of software or different styles or how to make custom brushes or things like that. So if you have any similar or other requests, please make them known so I can be helpful to produce videos for that content as well. Thank you again. Thank you for the support wherever you're doing it, and even just by watching this video and liking it or whatever. So thank you so much. Take care, guys.